and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live over the Lunenburg Public Access channel, on Facebook Live on the Facebook Public Access Facebook page, and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. Do we have any public comments this evening from the board?
No. I have none. Just want to thank everybody for coming out to the town caucus last night, and to all those who won nominations and those who didn't win nominations. I hope they do get signatures. It's always good to have contested elections so people have a selection of people to choose from. But I wanted to thank everybody for coming out.
Thank you. All right, do we have any public comments from the public this evening? Selectwoman Luck.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Phyllis Luck, 50 Sunset Lane. There is much about this recent tax assessment debacle that is most puzzling. Here's one that's very perplexing. We now know that once Lunenburg's tax data is submitted and approved by Mass DOR, it is Lunenburg Town's government's view that it is next to impossible to undo, regardless of its impact on the town and its residents. Therefore, it would be reasonable to assume those in charge would make sure a careful review would precede that submission, wouldn't it? I've looked at the changes in Lunenburg's annual tax rate for the last 12 years to the present FY 2023 tax year. Over this period, it had fluctuated a bit from year to year, usually to no more than 3%. However, from FY 22 to 23, the rate suddenly dropped by a dramatic 15%, which became known to all at the November 7th Select Board meeting when the rate was approved by this board. This much of a reduction clearly indicated that something had changed significantly, as pointed out by Vice Chair Alonso at the time. Did that red flag pique the interest of his supervisor, who's also the town's chief financial officer, the town manager, and or the Board of Assessors? And if not, why not? How is it possible that there was no oversight of the brand new principal assessor conducting his first fiscal year assessment? I mean, he hasn't finished school, as he pointed out during that January meeting. Or if there was oversight, that raises an equally troubling question. Did his supervisor do her job and supervise the FY 23 assessment work of the principal assessor and know of the extent of this impact in advance of the submission to the Department of Revenue? Either way, this is not the town manager's nor the town's finest hour. This fiasco is needlessly costing the town and its taxpayers too many of their hard-earned dollars. Let's stop the bleeding and get to the bottom of this to-date bottomless pit. Residents need answers to their many questions. Please start listening and providing the information you should have at your fingertips, yet seem to be holding hostage. Thank you.
Thank you, Selectwoman Lutt. Do we have any other public comments this evening? Mr. Lutt.
Good evening. Carl Luck, 50 Sunset Lane. I'm here to continue my efforts to gain access to exactly how the 135% increase to all lakefront properties was calculated. If you know, please share it with the community now. Time is of the essence, and a lot of struggling and stressed out people need that information. We, the Lucks, have had our property inspected as part of the abatement process, and unfortunately have had my fears confirmed, the ones that I expressed at your March 7th meeting. The conditions of the land will not be taken into account in any significant way. The same unit cost curves and multipliers will be used to calculate the assessment. And since the 135% is baked into these predetermined constants, there is no reason to believe the assessment will be any different. Why, after 2 months of your investigations, has the central issue not been run to ground? Why has the investigation team and/or select board not made this a priority? Right now, before abatements start getting denied, this information could provide the most compelling argument in support of an abatement. It's hard to believe that this answer, which should take a few hours to obtain, is not known. Or perhaps it is the case of the town management and government not wanting us to know the answer. I don't believe this. As you have volunteered your precious time to serve the community and not act against it. So please, provide me the right and make it known. So please prove me right that you don't have the information and just aren't sharing it, and help us get it. Make it known how the 135% was calculated, or work to remove any barriers that have been put in our way to give us access to the people and the public information to find out for ourselves. Thank you, and please don't make me keep beating this drum. Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Luck. Do we have any other public comments this evening?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just want to respond to one question that was asked. I want to say that I, for one, a member of the board, do not have the information and am not sharing it. I do not have the information you're looking for. I seek the same thing and have not received it either. So just so you're aware of that.
I concur with that statement.
Can I also
Yeah, as well. Like, none of us
add a
have it.
point, Mr. Jeffries?
Absolutely.
In additional points, because I'm going to reiterate some things I've said a bunch of times. First of all, I'm still calling for a joint meeting with the Board of Assessors to get them in here and explain what the process is, what's going on, where they are, what is their timeline, what is the process going to be over the next 4 weeks. I still, like Mr. Alonso, think it would be very, very useful sooner rather than later for CJ to Mr. Carroll to put together a presentation that people, the general population, can understand, including myself, just laid out as to how they got from step one to tax bills and all those steps that happened in between. I think that would help answer a lot of questions. And well, that's it for the moment. But those are two big things. And do we have any feedback from, I mean, I don't personally have any feedback on, I know you, Mr. Jeffries, had asked about a joint meeting, and have you heard anything back?
No.
Well, all right, I'm going to have to get on the horn and drag their butts in here.
I don't have any other information either.
May I add one thing here? I was going to find out where to put it, but this is as good a time as any. It was made clear by requests of residents, and I think I mentioned it last week, that people wanted to be involved with their abatement process. So when it was heard, that they would be able to be in the room while the abatement discussion about their particular abatement was before the Board of Assessors. Everybody urged, very strenuously, Mr. Franco urged the board that it's certainly in their discretion, but he would urge them to do that, given the extraordinary circumstances. And unfortunately, the response and then eventually people sent in emails, and one was forwarded in the response, did not come from the Board of Assessors, first of all, of whose policy this is. It is not a decision of the principal assessor. It is the decision of the Board of Assessors, who, and I do not take this criticism lightly, saying this on air of another elected body, who have been incredibly, incredibly invisible in this whole thing, in responding to ourselves and the public. But either at his own discretion or via the Board of Assessors, the answer came back from the principal assessor that there was not going to be any way for residents to sit in on their hearings, and this was, according to the email, according to state law. Now, first of all, it would behoove the Board of Assessors to answer on their own behalf on policy questions, number one. But if they had somebody answer on their behalf, it would be good if they got the answer right, which was spectacularly wrong. The answer that was given was citing Mass General Law that has nothing to do with hearings, and it has all to do with the records of abatements, including applications of the records and all subsidiary supporting documentation, not about the hearings themselves. It is incredibly silent, Mass General Law, on the hearings. They leave that, presumably, to the Board of Assessors. All of this lack of communication just goes to the frustration of the people who are trying to do their best to navigate through this and whose lives are being impacted the most. So again, I think we need to get people who have the authority to get in front of this, and somehow they have been silent through most of this process. And I don't know how long that'll last before there's, just a much more fevered answer from the public. And I don't know how long it can go on with them staying silent.
Yes.
Please, Mr. Chair. All right. Since Mr. Alonso opened the topic, I have been talking to the chair of the Board of Assessors, for one, and with particular regard to emails that have come in, more than one, I believe, citing Chapter 59, Section 60, which talks about who can be privy to the records of an abatement. Certain, of course, the Board of Assessors, certain members of the DOR, and the reply that came back in an email from Mr. Carroll to those people citing half of the statute. And leaving out the part that said, however, nothing in this, I'm paraphrasing, nothing in this section shall prohibit the abatement applicant from having access to the records. And why would it? The whole statute is about keeping confidentiality. The applicant is presumably going to know what's in that. There's no surprise information. The applicant is disclosing all their tax information or what have you, and their asset information. So yes, that section of the statute doesn't go to hearings at all. But even if it did, there is nothing, I agree with this aspect, there is nothing that requires the Board of Assessors to allow this, allow an abatement applicant to come in and speak verbally to their case. But there is absolutely nothing that prohibits it, and that is clear, and there's just no ambiguity about it. Certainly, in my very considered opinion, and I once again urge them to find a way. Here is one concern. This is a legitimate concern. There are a lot of abatement applications. They can't allow people to come in for 20 minutes or a half hour and get into a back and forth and to argue a case. There literally are not that many hours, if you count 24 hours a day, between now and May 1st to allow that to happen. But to allow people to come in and sort of verbally supplement and bring in supplementary material to foundations that they already laid in the application and say, okay, here is what I've done over the last 3 weeks. I got an appraisal. Here it is. Please consider this. And speak to it for 2 or 3 minutes and then leave. You got to leave the room. This is kind of what I'm thinking. And you're not going to get into a back and forth. There's just no time for that. So you come in, you've been heard, you verbally supplemented your application, and then they take the notes, and then they just consider that as part of the case file and go forward. I just think that, I actually think it would facilitate the process. I don't think it would gum it up. It would gum it up if people come in, though, and filibuster and get into a back and forth for a half hour. That can't happen. I just want to find a way. I like to thread a needle that balances these interests, that allows people to be heard to some extent. Something between a filibuster for 20 minutes and doing and not hearing them at all. So that's a needle I'd like to see threaded. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. I will, again, reach out to the Board of Assessors and invite them to attend a meeting with us. I will make space available at our next meeting for a 7:10 appointment with them. And I will, again, urge them to respond to the request. And I concur. As a selectman elected to represent the community, I am personally, and I've withheld this opinion for a while, but I am personally disgusted that we have elected officials who do not believe that it's necessary to be accountable to the people who elected them. That we have been fielding the majority of all the concerns for the last 2 months, and they have been wholly absent. For what gain? It makes absolutely no sense to me why anyone would choose to run for office, would choose to sit in an elected role, and have something of this magnitude going on and be silent. It's unacceptable, completely unacceptable, but we will, again, extend the invitation to them to come meet with us. I think we have a series of questions for them. I think the public needs better answers, and they need an engaged Board of Assessors. And, I was not at Caucus last night, but I was very happy to hear that Mr. Jack Rabbit will be, has put his name in the hat to join the Board of Assessors. I think that will bring some. Once elected, I think Jack offers a variety of skill sets, and certainly I think no one has accused him of not being thorough. And I have full confidence that when he is there, that we will get more accountability, better answers, better detail, maybe too much detail, but definitely better detail than what we've gotten so far. It's mind-blowing. Any other public comments from the board?
Which assessor is not returning?
Say again,
Which
Christine.
assessor? Who?
Christine.
Christine.
I have a couple comments related to this. So the principal assessor had consulted town council prior to giving that response, and he partially quoted council in his response. He inadvertently, I think, misinterpreted the law. So he quoted that the law does not contemplate a hearing process or that the public has a right to attend these executive sessions. And like Selectman Franco stated, and this was further confirmed with town council, there is neither a right nor a prohibition for the public to attend these sessions. It is at the full discretion of the assessors, not the town manager, not the principal assessor. So just to make that very clear. And further, I'm not holding back information on the calculation of the land valuation. I have requested this information for the principal assessor to put this together.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes.
Thank you for actually, I did not realize you had since subsequently followed up with the town council. I appreciate that. That confirms my interpretation of the statute as well. With regard to, and so again, once again, I will implore the Board of Assessors, if you're watching, to please allow this to some extent. Figure out a way. I'm willing to discuss with you how we might be able to make this work. I came from your world. I understand the concern. You can't have people in there for 20 minutes arguing a case. I get it. But I think the I think giving people zero opportunity is not the right route. So, finally, and then I'll be done, Mr. Jeffries, you reference, you will once again put out an invitation to the Board of Assessors. Is there anything that in our power that could make that something stronger than an invitation?
Unfortunately, we cannot compel their presence in front of us. As they are another elected board, they are considered to be more of a peer. It's not a board that we appoint where we could compel their presence and attendance. So unfortunately, I think that we could, if they fail to show at next week's meeting when we put them on the agenda, I think that we could also during that time period vote to, again, strongly worded, compel them or encourage them to attend. But unfortunately, no. I do not believe we have any power to force their attendance.
Not even as part of our investigatory powers? No? Okay. All right. I just figured I'd try.
Yep, they have to be willing participants. And like I said, I think the word I used was disgusted, and that reflects my personal opinion for any elected official. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes, but we have to sit and hear and talk to the public. That's just part of the job. So I just cannot put it together in my own head of why we are in this situation with a board that just won't do what I think any reasonable, practical person sees as the obvious thing to do.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Just for the record, it should be known that the emails are short, so I will read, if I may, the email. These got forwarded to us, to the entire board, got this, okay? So it's the public record. So when somebody asked about what the residents could expect in the process and will they be able to be there, the answer from the principal assessor was, once the board has voted, the applicant will be notified, and if approved, an abatement will be issued in the corresponding amount in the form of a check. The property owner will not be present for the process. If the applicant does not agree with the board's decision, they have 90 days from the board's decision to file with the state's appellate tax board. That is when a hearing will be held, if so desired. You can find that appeal process and all related things here. So it's very clear that the principal assessor is indicating that the property owner will not be present. The person who this got sent to then asks, is that your decision or a decision of the Board of Assessors? That's basically what they ask. And then the response gets, this is not a decision made by the town, it is state law. And then he goes on to partially cite the one area. And he says, the statutory scheme for processing abatement applications does not contemplate hearings, which is correct, the one part that's correct, but adverse decisions can go to the ATB. But the part that people not being present is not a town decision, is state law, is patently wrong. I just want it to be clear. And if he had said, I advised council would not have, I don't believe council would have approved this. He shouldn't be misinterpreting or interpreting what town council says. That's why we have town council. And this is a very dangerous area to be citing with authority what the state law is and then not be accurate to citizens who may not challenge it. That's what's important about this.
Thank you, Mr. Alonso.
One final thing.
Yep, and this will be the final.
My third final.
All right.
I will reiterate what the town manager said. This is not her decision, nor is it CJ's, Mr. Carroll's. I will use this. Although it looks as though he's representing, well, no, he's saying it's statute. It's not statute. This is the Board of Assessors' decision, and I just want the Board of Assessors to, maybe they just don't realize the full power, or their full authority. This is their decision. They've got the authority to say we're going to do this or not do this, and they ought to use it.
I want to remind the public that when you have elected officials who are not performing their jobs to standard, there is a process of recall that is outlined in the charter. Do we have any announcements today?
There's one announcement. The Lunenburg Conservation and Park Commissions will be holding a Earth Day on April 9th. And this there's a sign up, and this is located around town. It's also online on Facebook. And it will be addressing Veterans Park, Lane property, the library, Town Pound, Proctor Park, Pollinator Habitat, and Wallace Playground.
And this is an Earth Day town cleanup at
Yes.
select locations. Excellent, good stuff.
That's on Easter, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Not everyone
I
celebrates
know,
Easter.
I'm just pointing it out.
All right.
What time is that?
They do not have a time on here, but I assume it's through the QR code. That's not a time.
Oh, the QR code?
April 9th. Yeah. I
Okay.
thought it was April 9th through 23rd. I'm like, that's a long Earth Day. All right. We'll follow up on that, Heather.
Okay.
Did you want to mention the invitation that we received from the Boys and Girls Club?
Oh, for their Smarter Than a Sixth Grader?
Yes.
Yeah, did everyone see that email? Yeah. So, Michael,
Yeah,
are you-
Tom's usually the
Yeah, that's what I
moderator
thought.
of the event.
Oh, he's the moderator?
Not moderator, I'm the host.
The
yes.
host.
Oh, the
I
host.
will be the
Okay.
MC.
You're
I
the
will be
MC?
the MC for now the 9th straight year.
Which is
Okay,
incredible.
so they asked for a team.
All right. I volunteered
I know you did.
immediately.
Yes.
All right, so to the board members, let's keep, if we can come together and be supportive to the event, if the remaining three of us can be a team, that would be ideal. So,
I have-
If there's
I
a
have additional-
team and I'm there, we may have to post. Be the first time we're going to post for our Boys and Girls Club game show night.
all right.
It was the Friday, right? It's coming up.
Yeah, it's
isn't
a
it?
Friday, the
Okay,
28th.
The 28th of April, right?
Yes.
All right.
And I have further information. I scanned the QR code. It's actually, it looks like it starts on April 8th, and they have dates from April 8th all the way until the 23rd.
Oh, okay, so it's like.
So
a
there's
whole-
various times to do cleanups at each of the locations.
Okay.
9th through 23rd.
That's going to be, but that's not a time.
Yeah, hey, all right. Do we have any other, I know we spent quite a bit of time tonight on our public comments. It's kind of a catch-all sometimes. Do we have, and we covered announcements. Do we have any other announcements from the board this evening? All right, communications from other boards. All right, I know it's 7:30, but now let's go to our 7:05 appointment for a poll petition hearing for Howard Street relocation of pole number 42.
Good evening.
Good evening.
John Kimball, Unitil. So this is for a possible new development going in. The pole is directly in line with the driveway. So just need to shift the pole 18 feet to the left, which will still be within the property line, but on the town take. And the anchor would be 10 feet behind the pole.
Okay. To the board.
And I do have photos, if you
wanna
want
see
photos.
I do have a question.
I see
Yep.
that.
Is this,
right?
I mean, not that it matters, if Unitil wants to move the pole, but, I mean, is this an approved, like, do we know this is where the road is going to be?
Yes.
Okay.
The road is already roughed in. Yeah, and this pole is dead
For
center,
that.
so we would have to move it.
Okay. Like I said, I don't have any objection to moving it.
Good quality photos.
They're very nice.
Here's here.
Say again?
There are
Yep.
better.
All right, let's go through the board with any questions or comments that we have, and then we will open it up to any abutters that are in attendance.
And so where is this road going?
This is off Howard Street. It's
Yeah.
gonna go out back, the sand pit that's out back there. Back that
Okay.
direction, yeah.
This is to,
This is the proposed 40B, is that correct?
It is, right?
Is that-
That's what I was wondering.
yes.
I drove up there the other day.
All right.
Okay.
Any questions or comments for Unitil from the board?
I have none, unless somebody unless that house objects for some reason. which I-
Yeah.
Or the other house. It's
I
like-
happen to know that people who live across the street, they do not support it, and on their behalf, I will not be supporting this. But do we have anyone from the public that is in attendance that would like to speak to this request?
Project.
It has to be mic'd, otherwise people at home can't hear, sorry.
Or C, I think. But the camera wouldn't pick him up, I don't think.
My name is Renee Shattuck. I live at 396 Howard Street.
Good to see you.
A couple of things. When I got the notice about changing the pole site, my wife and I noticed that it was an old plan going back probably to around 2013. Since then, there has been a land swap between Mr. O'Brien and his company and my family, in that a couple of parcels were changed. Obviously, it's not going to change the idea of moving the pole, but I did take the liberty of running off copies, and if you'd like an updated copy of what the proposal, all right, there should be enough there. And also, if you're in the legalities, I have copies of the quitclaim deed that we have, and each one of you could have one of those too.
It's in our Google Drive, I think.
The land swap took place officially in 2019. And here are the... And this is the quitclaim deed. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. The other point, or a couple of points that I'd like to make, have to do with the moving of the pole, which to me seems a little bit silly, because where the pole is now, it's anchored in good dry land. Its proposal is to move it to an area that previously had been a drainage trench hooked into a storm drain on Howard Street, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have a pole buried in the ground in that area. And the second thing is that with the pole right at the end of what would be Kevin Drive, I think it is, and Howard Street, with 2 lanes of traffic in and out of the development. It's a school bus stop, and having school kids waiting for the school bus there, and all of the traffic that's coming up the hill from New West Townsend Road, going faster than normal because just getting up the hill faster. There's going to be an awful lot of congestion with a couple of hundred cars that could come out of the development, and all of the increased traffic that's been coming on Howard Street. And I think it's something that you should consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to respond to any of those concerns, Unito?
But wait, before if you're going to, you can please use the mic, that's all.
So you're saying there's a drainage underneath where the pole is proposed?
No, the trench has been covered over, but it's right along the side on where my house is, the lower side. Where are we at here? Oh,
So your house is right here, sir.
okay, yeah, okay, so the pole is going to be moved,
Pole is there currently, that's the
and it's going to be
proposed.
moved down, right, and at that area right here, it's a few feet away from a storm drain, and this trench that was running right alongside the rock wall has been filled in.
When they install the pole, they have to have good solid ground to put it in. So
Yeah.
if it's not, they put in rock to make it.
Well, the pole has always been there, and I've been living there for 51 years.
Right.
So-
The only reason we're trying to move it is to get it out of the way of the driveway.
Oh, I understand that,
But as far as your concerns on the trench, solid fill can be brought in.
well, whatever, yeah, but there's still water that shows up on that side of the street coming down now, and I don't know what it'll be like once it's paved or got a solid bed or whatever else. So, I mean, that's not my concern. I'm just stating
Yep.
something that I think could be a problem in the long run. Okay?
Mr. Shattuck, do you object to the moving beside?
Do I object to it? Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Because
I know that it's not my property, and, whatever else that could happen.
I'm just asking, why would you object? Why are you objecting to the pole relocation?
Why?
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Once again, it's going to move, it's going to congest that little area. We're talking about 30 yards roughly from my driveway entrance to where the road is for the development to a driveway on the other side, my neighbor next door. We're talking 30 yards. You're going to have 2 lanes of traffic coming out, potentially hundreds of cars, extreme speed coming up the hill with cars, school bus stop, and there will be an awful lot of kids waiting and there will be no sidewalks there.
And,
So,
is it Ann?
where are these people going to be? Sure.
Ann Shattuck, 396 Howard Street. When Rennie showed me the letter from the town hall and the map that came along with it, I immediately noticed that it was an older map. It did not reflect where our land had been pushed off to the side. That has been my primary issue. And then, of course, then we did go to the town hall and spoke to the secretary of the town manager, and she said she was going to scan that and put that in to a PowerPoint or something, which I'm not seeing. My concern was not the moving of the pole so much as the recording of something legal on the wrong diagram, that it's not accurate, and that's going to go into the record. So that's...
Well, that's...
And I know that Rennie's concerned about so many other things, but I think that's what we're here today to go over, the moving of the pole by Unitil. But they pulled the old map.
Yep, the one that we're looking at has plans dated 2016.
Right, it does not reflect, I think it was C1 and A2, was that right, Kevin?
And I think,
That-
gentleman from Unitil is very much so aware
Right, oh, they are, okay.
that we are, yeah.
That's all.
I don't think you,
Okay,
I
all
think you should finish what
I
you're
wanna
about to
finish-
say.
yeah, I wanna
Just-
finish that-
Yeah,
that
finish your
statement.
sentence so people who don't know, I know what you're going to say
Yep.
too,
So people, the gentleman from Unitil is very much so aware that we are rigid about having good plans in front of us that depict driveways and that show structures and that are current. So the plan that we've been given, which is this poll petition plan, it appears to be, I know that this is what your husband just pointed out to us, but I thought I had saw this previously, from the, let me see if I have that in here.
It's in the poll petition hearing.
But this one,
Yep. So we do have this in this plan that's been presented. It is in their request. So we do have the old 2016 map, and we have their newer map. I think Unitil is very much so aware that we will turn them away if this is missing a driveway. It's never mind being, 7 years old. So I do believe they submitted updated information.
Mr. Chairman, board members, my name is Kevin O'Brien. I am the owner of the property. A couple of things that were said. If you look at the plans or the pictures that I gave you, you can see where the pole exists now. It's being moved on this plan to the left towards Shattuck's property. If you look at what Mr. Shattuck said about the drain, you can see where the water comes down through the snow. Pretty evident. It's over, the drain is over here on the right-hand side. There is a pipe there right now. We exposed that last year. We put silt fence and hay bales around it, so we know it's there. The pipe goes out on the edge of the road. Over here, there's no pipe. Of course, if there's a pipe, if we intercepted a pipe of some sort, we would not drill in that area. I know there's no pipe there. I'm the one that takes these pictures. I am the one that went out there with the conservation people. I'm the one that went out when the hay bales were done. My guys did the digging, so I know where the pipe is. The pole itself being moved over, if you look at the plan that Unitil has sent you, it shows that pole being back a little bit more off the road than number 42 in the white circle as opposed to the black circle. Maybe 2 feet, 3 feet more further off the road, so I don't think it's gonna exasperate the problem that we, with the people going fast on the road and the school buses. I don't think that's gonna hinder anything. What they're talking about with the plan, I'm not sure, but I think the only thing we pick up on this is their property right here. It's 396 Howard Street. This sliver of land right here that says Kevin Drive is not Kevin Drive, it's their property. It's part of their property. Kevin Drive is right here. I think it's just a simple typo. I know that they own that property. I deeded it to them whenever, I don't remember the date, but whatever Mr. Shattuck just said is when we deeded it to them. So that's our presentation. I mean, if there's any other questions that, you need answered, we're here to answer them.
So if I can be clear, I don't know whether it's to you, Mr. O'Brien, or to Unitil, on your plan that you provided, that there's one dotted line that goes kind of cuts the corner of their house. That was their old property, and the lower dotted line next to it is the new property line. Is that correct?
This is exactly what you said. The first one going through their house was the old.
Okay.
And this one right here
Okay. Is the new one. Okay.
the side of
So the Kevin Drive inside there is errant.
What's identified as A on our hand map.
Right. Well, yeah, on that, yeah, okay. So to Unitil, this is on the new deed? This
Yes.
plan?
Yes.
Okay. I do have one question, and again, it's not very clear. Obviously, Kevin Drive is not going to be 60-plus feet wide. Do we have any idea, where that pole is going to be in relation to the proposed street?
As far as from the pavement to where the pole's gonna be?
I'm assuming that the road is going to intersect Howard Street somewhat perpendicularly.
Correct.
So
Correct.
how far away is that pole going to be from the edge of the street in the closest corner of it?
From the edge of the street, the new the new Kevin Drive, probably 7 feet back from the edge.
Okay.
You typically leave area for sidewalks, as was suggested, the project will have sidewalks. Yes, we all know it's tying into Howard Street that does not have sidewalks. It's just not wide enough to put sidewalks in.
Okay.
But the project itself, as approved by the planning board back 4 or 5 years ago, shows sidewalks in the project.
Fair enough.
And the design typically has the poles behind the sidewalk.
The reason I ask is because usually when we have pole locations, again, driveways or streets are important, and here we're moving something for a proposed street, but we don't see where the proposed street is, so that's the only reason I bring it up.
Well, the 60 feet is the layout right-of-way that's required in Lunenburg under your subdivision control.
Right.
Road layouts are 60 feet wide. The road itself will probably be from curb to curb, anywhere from 26 to 28 feet, and then you have a foot for each side for curbing, and then you have 15 feet on each side of the road for mailboxes and sidewalks, depending on how the town does it. Other towns have done the grass strip between the curbing and the sidewalk, and then people's mailboxes get hit, and then the post office complains. And so a lot of towns and cities have gone to communal mailboxes. One place, everyone that's delivered there, and everyone has to stop at the end of the day to get their mail.
Since you happen to be here, Mr. O'Brien, you just made reference to approved plans by the planning board. Is it your intent to build according to the approved plans by the planning board?
No.
Okay. So then what do you...
As you know, because you've been at meetings,
Well-
I am before the ZBA with a comprehensive permit. This road, where this road is going to go, is exactly what's on the plan, even the comprehensive permit. So this road location will go here. If I answer that question.
You've answered it. So you want to get a pole moved in preparation for a plan that you're not actually going to build, and you have another one in front of you that's not permitted. So I think you've answered my question. Do you have any other questions?
So that the zoning board hasn't approved that 40B housing, correct?
Correct.
So this is just in anticipation of an approval of a plan that hasn't been
No, you've got I have an approved subdivision,
That's what, and,
been approved by the planning board.
correct, and that's what Chairperson Jeffrey was asking. If the zoning board doesn't approve your 40B housing, will you be building the plan that you were approved to
Yes.
build? Yes?
In answer to your question, if I have misunderstood yours, I'm sorry. But yes, I would be building, if the 40B does not get approved, I would build the subdivision.
As approved.
I think. As of today, yes.
I think yeah, we'll save
And
my
what is the
opinion.
timeline for that?
For what?
Excuse me? For the process that you're in now? Do you have any idea when that will be? I'm just wondering why we need to approve that at this meeting, this
Because I'd
pole
like to get
moving.
it off. I'd like to get this pole removed from the center of the road instead of getting to the point where whether the ZBA approves it, disapproves it, we go to court, we don't go to court. I've got an approved subdivision that I could put that road in right now. I would like to move the pole out of the way. I don't want to wait till 6 months, 3 months, a month. I don't know how long the ZBA is going to take.
Got it. Any other questions for Unitil or the applicant?
Yeah, just after all the smoke flying around here, I just want to cut through the smoke. The Shattocks, are your concerns now addressed? That there is an updated plan on file, accurately reflecting your property?
If the Unitil drawing that will be filed officially is changed to reflect exactly what's there and ownership, I think we're fine with that. Okay,
So can I ask where you're standing here?
yes.
So if we take this existing line that used to go through your property, as you just said, the old line, we take that off and take the Kevin Drive off.
We have given, there is another map out here someplace that reflects.
This one?
There, yes. Right, and that, yes,
That's exactly what I'm saying.
that's right,
This strip right here is this strip
that's
right
right,
here.
correct, with a bow.
Yep. Well, we didn't have the bow in it because we didn't go far enough back.
Right.
Correct.
So does that answer the question posed to us? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments, questions for the applicant or for Unitil?
Is the Shattuck's presented claim, is that what's going to be filed?
Yes.
Is that what we have before us?
Except for right here. Right here, it does say Kevin Drive,
Right.
but that will be corrected.
But it's clear where that's going.
Yes,
Okay.
100%.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Is there a motion?
Move that we approve the poll petition hearing for Howard Street relocation of pole number 42, Plan 976-L, as presented and discussed.
Second.
Do you have any other discussion on this? All right, as many as are in favor, we have a motion and a second. As many as are in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. No. The motion passes.
Thank you. Have a great night.
All right, I apparently tucked away the agenda. All right, we have appointment with Council of Aging, George Martin, and also the Chair of the Council of Aging is with us this evening. So if I can invite Mr. Martin and Mrs. Lincoln to come forward, that'd be excellent.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. If you wouldn't mind just stating your name and address and your interest in getting appointed to the Council of Aging.
Okay, so George Martin, 522 Burridge Street, Lunenburg, town resident for about, 26, 27 years. So my mother was on the Townsend Council of Aging for many years, and I saw through her the value of being part of that presented. And so I'm sort of like looking to carry on the family tradition a little bit. I've also, I go to the lunches once in a while over there at the senior center, and I see the value that it brings to a lot of the seniors as far as, getting out there socially and interacting. And I just want to be part of it to basically give my time to make it what it is now, or even improve it based on what the other members ask for my time. So I have a lot of time on my hands these days, so I just want to give it to the town. And as a way to say thank you for everything that's happened for the last 27 years here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, George.
Yep.
I'm Debbie Lincoln, Chairman of the Council on Aging, 46 Hemlock Drive. I just want to say that the council is very delighted to have George step up. The only disappointment we have is that we found out that he wasn't the manager of the Beatles. He didn't know Paul McCartney. But other than that, we are completely delighted about having him. He came to the last meeting. He already is contributing, and we're very pleased to have him come on board, so we hope you'll approve him. I just wanted to say one thing. He is replacing a member who truly had a demise. This time I'm right. One of our beloved members passed away, and he is replacing her. So he will only be on board 3 months before he's going to have to reapply. So I'm sure he'll do the paperwork, but I'm hoping that you will let him not come and be interviewed again in 3 months, that we can skip this process and just have him complete his paperwork, because we don't want to tax him too much. We want him to stay. So hopefully we can skip this
I
interview.
see George a lot around. I serve on some boards with him. I don't think he's going to have a problem if he's asked to come this way.
Okay, well, anyway, hopefully we can skip that process and he'll just do his paperwork, because we'll only have him for 3 months. But thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lincoln. In our policy, any member can request to interview for any board, so I can't give that guarantee just yet, but certainly I don't have any issue reappointing members to the Council of Aging without interview. Well, again, Mr. George, you're a familiar face to all of us. I called you Mr. George. Mr. Martin, you're a familiar face to all of us. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? And if not, is there a motion?
I don't have any, no.
I just want to say that I had the opportunity to observe Mr. Martin at the last Council on Aging and meeting, and he is a natural in that habitat.
Wow. I don't know how we're supposed to take that.
I don't know.
I have served with George on the Capital Planning Committee, where he's a very valuable member. I've known George for many years before then. And not only is he not the manager of the Beatles, he also didn't write Game of Thrones.
That's what I was
So there you
wondering.
go.
That's what I was gonna ask, George.
That's two strikes, man. You're on very thin ice already from the beginning. But yes, it would be a pleasure to have him on there, and I think he would do do well, and it's nice to hear the council, through their chair, be delighted that he wants to join them.
And now, before we take a motion here, you're here for another reason too. So you're also volunteering to join the Clockwinders. And so I know we have 2 members of the town Clockwinders here with us. We're killing a wasp right now.
Sorry.
This has now become a Tuesday thing, that at least one wasp comes down on our table.
And I just want to say to the public, if anybody on television witnessed that, counselors will be made available.
So do we have any questions related to the request to join the Clockwinders?
I just want to speak to, Mr. Martin has already served on the Clockwinders in the past, and it was great to have him. I was very, when I saw him at the Council on Aging meeting last week, he indicated his interest in coming back, and I'd be very excited to have him back, so.
He said in his intro that he has time on his hands, and this will really be true now.
Right.
All right, that was a good one. Okay, do we have any motions? We can take them to one motion with both or individually.
I will take a shot here that I move that we appoint George Martin to the Council on Aging, term to expire June 30th of this year, and also to ratify him as the town manager's appointment as the town clockwire, term also to expire in June 30th of this year.
Second.
Any additional discussion? As many as are in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion passes.
You don't have to interview twice, George.
Thank you.
And that was an aye for myself there, too.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Hey, can I offer off-subject public comment?
I will take it.
Okay, so I just want to make people aware that the bears are awake now, and they're nailing like every bird feeder in sight in my neighborhood. So I just want to make people aware that when you're hanging these bird feeders out there, you're kind of attracting them, and something just to be aware of. I mean, when I found out from my neighbors what was going on, we just took ours down and figured we'll put them back up when they're not as hungry. So
All right.
hopefully that helps. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
Mr. Chair, if you said it, I missed it, but did you advise Mr. Martin to go get sworn in?
I did not.
Okay.
So if you wouldn't mind checking in with the town clerk, getting sworn into both positions, and then also the select board has updated its appointment policy, which is applicable for the Council of Aging. And so if you wouldn't mind looking, you should get a copy of it from Elaine and just read through that. There's a couple of important updates.
Okay,
All
perfect.
right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for volunteering. All right. To the town manager's report.
Just to add on to that last, under interviews, appointments, and resignations, including retirements, we are aware of 2 retirements that will be forthcoming. Kit Walker, the facilities superintendent, announced that he'll be retiring on May 1st.
Oh, wow.
And so he served with the town for 10 years, so we want to extend a warm thank you to him for all his assistance to the town, and he's been a pleasure to work with in my time here. And Sergeant Sean Connery has announced he will be retiring effective July 5th, and that's after 33 years with the town. So thank you to Sergeant Connery as well.
When I worked at Whalum Park when I was a kid, I worked in foods, and I would bike. I lived near the center of town. I would bike into Whalum. Sergeant Connery would often get assigned to Whalum as a detail, and so whenever it would rain, my parents were like, be tough, ride bike home, and Sean Connery would always give me a ride, and so that's kind of how I got to know him as like a little 14-year-old. I was this height, but as a 14-year-old, and he was always very kind. He's a really good, solid guy, and I certainly have gotten to know him since then, so it's a big loss to the town. So please let me know when that retirement party will be.
Will do.
That's quite a few retirements we have this spring, with Marjorie leaving, Barbara leaving. Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Number. I have no town manager report for tonight.
Yeah. Do you have any updates you want to include?
No.
All right. Old business, so discussion on fiscal year 2024 budget, capital plan, annual town meeting warrant articles, and possible votes on recommendations. So to the town manager, after our meeting last week, I know that we did several recommendations. Have there been any changes to anything that would allow us to make recommendations tonight?
Well, you have a number of documents in the annual town meeting document folder. So the budget is finalized. The capital plan, I have a final revision to the capital plan for fiscal '24 as well. And those would be the major changes. Also, that includes recommendation for OPEB, for the regular stabilization, for the special purpose stabilization account. So those are all relevant warrant articles.
All right, and I haven't checked to see if those warrants have been updated to reflect those new numbers.
No, because there's some articles that are likely to come off.
Okay. All right.
And we can go through those.
Yeah, let's go through those.
Okay. So the board already voted on the reports article, Article A, the revolving fund, which is Article B right now. The C, there are no known prior year expenses. So we're looking to pass over that article. D, the fiscal '23, the finance director is working on the final chart for all the transfers for within the fiscal '23 budget, including the snow and ice budget. The overlay account, that is 1.5 million to come out of free cash. That number will not change. The fiscal '24 capital plan, if you want to, looking at that, it can, the recommendation includes 6 additional projects. And the funding sources, so the total is $2,025,010. That includes the $986,000 from the special purpose stabilization account. I just wanted to highlight that that's the funding source for those 3 projects. $556,789.09 from raise and appropriation. $467,268.98 from free cash, and $14,951,000.
Where are we looking at this?
This is the capital plan.
It's in a document in the folder.
Revised capital plan, sorry. Okay.
The bottom portion.
Okay.
Would you mind sharing any documents tonight on the screen?
I'll just have to close out each one when.
Yep. Don't worry about it just
Okay.
yet.
Right.
And these are tiny anyway, they're not going to show up.
Yeah. I can share this one right now for. So this shows the list of projects. There's a column that shows the preliminary recommendation, and the column all the way to the right shows my revised recommendation.
Okay. So anyone who can't read this, I'll just ask the clerk, would you mind just reading through the projects?
Sure. Okay. Town manager priority number 1, that's what we're talking here, fire, right? Replacement rescue 1. Fiscal '24 preliminary capital plan recommendation, $506,000. I'll just read the finals. Should I read
Yes.
just the finals? Okay, that's also $506,000. Project 2, the elementary school, Turkey Hill Elementary School exterior door upgrades, replacements, final $160,000. Again, under schools, Turkey Hill's security upgrades, $131,000. School again, primary school security upgrades, $83,500. DPW, six-wheel dump truck, spreader, plow truck, $240,000. DPW six-wheel dump truck, spreader, plow truck number 2, $240,000. Schools, Turkey Hill Elementary, upgrade fire alarm system, $287,000. Fire, public safety radio system, update, replace obsolete hardware, phase 1, $242,510. Pretty exact. Northfield, DPW. Northfield Culvert, Kelly's Pond, survey design permit, $25,000.
Can I stop for a second? Where is Kelly's Pond? I've never even heard of
Is it
that.
down the hill on the dip,
Is that?
like going towards Settlers and on the left-hand side?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I think cars have gone in there.
That is
On this
that's
side of
where-
13? On this side of?
No, the other
west
side.
On the west side
Yeah,
of 13.
going
Okay.
towards Settlers, the golf
Yeah,
course.
by
that's on-
Sentence,
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
DPW, new 1/2-ton four-wheel drive crew cab pickup truck, $55,000. Facilities, TC Paseo sidewalk repair Vertex item number 4, $25,000. Facilities, Parks, Whalum Lake, and Marshall Pond treatment, $30,000, for a total of $2,025,010.
Thank you.
What is the pond treatment?
For Marshall.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to do weed control, and there's different phases of that weed control for both ponds.
Okay.
So I will, at the next meeting, have additional information on each of those projects with the slides that I typically do. This is where we landed today. Okay.
All right.
All right, getting back.
We left off on F, so G.
Yes, so G is the fiscal '24 budget, which there's a line item budget within your Google Drive, and as well as an adjustment sheet that itemizes all the adjustments that have been made since the preliminary budget recommendation. And I'll answer any questions on those. H, I assume we're going to be removing that article as we have not begun negotiations with the clerical union.
Guessing you're not going to get it done.
All right. That's yet to be determined. We're in the midst of negotiations. We hope to have that finalized by town meeting. The regular stabilization, the recommendation is to deposit $100,000 from free cash into stabilization. For special purpose stabilization account, to deposit $250,000 from free cash into this account. This will keep on our long-term plan of depositing money into that account to account for future large purchases, especially the fire department's apparatus coming, so we won't have to borrow in the future. The OPEB is to deposit per our policy, our financial policy, 10% of the prior year's certified free cash. So that's $282,855. For the sewer enterprise, that is noted on the revenue expense worksheet as far as their budget, which was presented to the Finance Committee this past Thursday. Their capital reserve stabilization article and the OPEB one will be combined with our regular OPEB. We typically do that for efficiencies, is combine those two, and the motion will stipulate what the sources are for the deposits, one being into the town OPEB account and one into the sewer OPEB account. And that amount for the sewer is $1,000. And the solid waste disposal program enterprise fund, that's $302,000 for fiscal '24. For the water enterprise fund, that is $25,000 for fiscal '24. Public access, their budget, they did their presentation last week to finance as well. That total budget is $210,764. And I can go back to sewer, $2,094,850.62. S is from the Historical Commission to do a survey of historic homes. There is information in your Google Drive about that project.
Are they confirmed for next week?
To attend our meeting. They are going to finance. I can see if someone can come to the select board. Personnel is confirmed for next week, which is the next article. And they voted last night for to do a 2.5% COLA for SAP employees for fiscal '24, with the goal of they're undergoing a comp and class survey right now, but not at a point where they can present material. So coming back at the November town meeting to do an adjustment article that would be retroactive. But making sure that those employees get a cost of living adjustment. The article at the November meeting would be a market adjustment to make sure those employees are compensated according to market rates.
I've been asking about the pay schedule for the town clerk for a bit. So I was a little disappointed to hear that they will not be coming forward with that change. I don't think the town clerk is getting paid nearly enough.
The assistant town manager has done her own review, and I can present that material that can be voted at a future town meeting. U is likely or should come off because we have not begun any negotiations regarding this TIF with Lufa Farms. V is for the public safety building security upgrades that will be discussed under another agenda topic tonight. So after your vote tonight, if it's to fund through ARPA, then this article can be removed. W is the senior tax relief program article. And the one main question that you'd asked me to follow up with town council on was section 6, and he sent me information this afternoon on this. Basically, this language came from the draft that we had and his research, and there's 13 other communities that have adopted special legislation similar to Lunenburg within the last 10 years. All but 3 have included the 3-year sunset language. One had a 5-year sunset, and the other 2 had provisions for revocation at a town meeting, by a town meeting vote. So he is going to look into further why that language was included, whether it was communities mirroring language from another adoption, or was it because that was a suggestion by the legislature through their review and language insertion.
So Lou, if I may, well, Lou and I have discussed this. I mean, the reason why it was there, and we have been open about this, is that this kind of senior tax relief has been contemplated at the state level. And what we want to avoid is that if it ever gets passed at the state level, that we don't have a double program, that you get state benefits and then you get local benefits as well. So but a timed a timed sunset of the legislation seems to be drastic, because then we have to submit special legislation. Having heard that 2 towns have gotten it passed, that town meeting can revoke it, that seems to be that's the way I'd prefer to go. That way, if something passes at the state level, we at the town can just say, okay, now, and give the reasonings why, is that, okay, this is covered by the state, and we don't need to cover it here locally. So we would have the authority at any point, not 3 years, not 5 years, or anything like that. So that would be mine. I received your text. Lou was not on that text, so he's the first time he's hearing this.
Yeah, thank you for checking into that. Yeah, Mr. Alonso and I are of a mind here on this. I would prefer that it take an actual express act to revoke it in the town, rather than just have it sunset automatically, and us having to keep it alive by action.
Right.
So
Since 2 towns have already done it, I guess the state legislature has already approved it in some regard. So I would probably say that would be our preference, unless he has strong reasoning against it.
yeah, we still definitely want the answer to the question, or at least I do.
Right.
Yeah, you know, so.
Heather, are you in agreement?
Yeah.
Yes, so am I. Okay.
And please thank town council for that.
Yes,
Will
thanks.
do. Next article is the sale of cemetery lots article for $10,000. That's for the care, improvement, embellishment of town cemeteries. That's a typical article they have on the annual town meeting warrant. Y is the planning board's article, putting self-storage into the table. That requires a special permit. And Z is an article to create a new special purpose stabilization fund for opioid settlement funds.
All right.
Is there any questions on budget?
No, so,
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yeah.
Just, it's not really a question, it's a comment. I just want to clarify something on the senior tax relief article. Are we otherwise, maybe we haven't gotten to this far, are we otherwise in agreement that that article should stay the way it is, and this is the only remaining question on it before we vote on it next week?
for me, yes, I think that you were,
Okay.
I thought we walked through this pretty thoroughly.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because we had, yep.
Okay,
That's
so,
all.
so next week, I'm assuming that you're gonna plug in those numbers we just went through, are they, so that way they're on the warrant? Is that your expectation?
They're typically not in the warrant. They're printed in the booklet, in the table.
Well, can you print them in so that we can go through them in the,
Yes, yep.
in a visual? Like for us to,
I think Heather just worded that the way that perhaps I meant to word it.
Okay.
But, yeah, we're at the same, okay. So next week, we'll have all that kind of outlined for us, that way we can easily go through this and make some recommendations. And the cutoff, as I recall, is next week, right?
Yes.
All right.
I will also just, Mr. Chair, we just received from the town manager the capital plan. I will send this out to the capital planning committee.
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay, it was on, I didn't see if they were listed. Okay, so I don't see, and I'm going to suggest this to the capital planning committee, that I don't see a reason for us to meet. This just goes down the list of our priorities, and although the last item is a couple of priority numbers off from ours, it's the first time that it really deviates. I don't think it's sufficient enough to have a meeting about it, as the town manager has that authority under our town charter, so I don't see any reason why we would need to meet. And I will recommend that unless somebody comes up with a strong reasoning otherwise.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna go into current business. Anything else you want to go over? Anything else before we move on from old business? All right, going into current business. So first, due to my role as the, due to my civilian job, I keep saying civilian like I'm still in the military, due to my normal day-to-day job, I was on the other end of this negotiation. And so I have to fully remove myself from this conversation. I don't see the point in sitting down there, but I'll sit here. But if Vice Chair, if you can discuss and work with the town manager on one, like I said, I'm the landlord for Neshoba Valley Dispatch, so I can't engage in this conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I would turn it over to the town manager. In our Google Drive, we have the agreement updates, which I'm assuming are the significant changes we should be aware of.
Yes.
So if you want to go through those with us, that would be excellent.
I can, and I'll give you a little background first. So, as you're aware, there's multiple towns, part of the Neshoba Valley Regional Dispatch District, per se. So when the district was originally formed, it wasn't a district under state law. It was formed through intermunicipal agreements because at that time, that law hadn't been in place. So once that law was enacted, the communities that came on after that law was enacted signed district agreements versus the original community's intermunicipal agreements. So we had two different documents we were going off of. And so we worked long and hard on putting the document you have before you tonight, both the administration board, all the members, so it's a representative from each member town, from essentially their town administrator or town manager. And there's a finance committee. They reviewed the agreement as well, so that's a member from each of usually the town accountant serves on that committee, and the operations committee, which usually includes the police and fire chiefs on that committee. So all three entities within the district reviewed the agreement, all agree with the changes, and I can go through them. There's a list. So these are just a summary of the changes. Member community representatives can only serve on one of our boards, the administration, finance, or operations.
I'm assuming that means an individual, like any individual can only serve on one of those.
Correct.
Okay.
You can't serve on two different.
Okay.
The operations committee will be formed by two representatives from each community, police and fire chiefs, or public safety director. That was unclear in the prior language. Every representative on the operations committee will have one vote. The administration board appoints the executive director. The executive director's job qualifications, duties, and responsibilities shall be established by the admin board in conjunction with the operations committee. The executive director reports to the administration board but works in conjunction with the operations committee on all matters pertaining to communications equipment and systems, dispatch protocols, and operational policies and procedures, and making recommendations to the administration board. The executive director, with the assistance of the operations committee, will be responsible for the district's budget, including the capital budget. The district accountant and treasurer positions are designated as part-time employees of the district and report to the executive director and finance committee. Year-end balances from the budget will be carried forward to the next year until all assessments and grant reimbursements are received for continuity of operations. Once all funds are received, the executive director will present the balance to the finance committee and make recommendations as to the appropriation of the remaining amount. The district will be responsible for maintaining and purchasing its systems and equipment, and each participating community shall provide and maintain all necessary telephone circuits, radio circuits, frequencies, two-way radios, antennae, and any related and necessary equipment related to their agency's operation, communication with the dispatch facility, and their respective emergency networks. All such telecommunications costs, maintenance costs, and expenses for equipment located within its community shall be the responsibility of each respective community. This is an important distinction, especially for communities that are exiting at any point the district, to make sure they maintain their equipment separately from the district, as the district equipment is purchased through district and the grants typically.
So you have no claim to it when you leave the district?
Right.
Any questions on this from the board? I will say these sound like common sense
Yeah.
items and the updates. Now, this is just an executive agreement. This is not the financial agreement that we need. Like, have the changes in what it costs the town to be part of the district?
No.
Okay.
No. That gets voted on, the finance committee votes on the assessment that's presented by the executive director, then it gets presented to the administration board as the assessment amount.
So this is the final, and we have the final agreement in its
Yes.
entirety.
Yes,
Is there any reason to go into this? I assume town council has reviewed this?
yes, he has seen it actually, and because he's also council for Townsend, so he saw it when he was,
Okay.
when they were a member as well. And this has been voted, I think, by all, but Lancaster and us and Devon, so the other
Okay.
3 communities have voted.
So I would open it up to the board if they have any questions, comments, or otherwise.
I do not. It all seems straightforward.
And I would entertain a motion regarding the updated Neshoba Regional Dispatch District Agreement.
You want to do it?
I move that we accept the updated Neshoba Valley Regional District Dispatch, no, I'm sorry, Neshoba Valley Regional Dispatch District Agreement as updated.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay. Any further discussion?
the only question, how long is it? How long does this last?
The agreement, it's in, until,
Perpetuity.
in perpetuity,
Oh,
until
okay.
it's changed.
Until you change it and update?
Right.
Okay.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? So it's 3-0 with 1 recusal, not even an abstention. I don't think that gets voted as an abstention. It's just 3-0, unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, for that. All right, vote on ARPA funding for public safety building security camera system. So this came up last week, and bottom line here is that we're having some critical system failures regarding that system at the building that needs immediate repairs. I think the town manager was effective in the presentation last week that it is in our best interest to move forward as soon as possible on this. And so we push this to this meeting so that way the board will have the opportunity to discuss utilizing ARPA funds so that way we can get this funded and repaired immediately.
What's the cost again?
Yeah.
$81,054. Unless Lou's reading it, then it's $81,503.99.
All right, is there a motion to commit those funds?
I would move that we commit $81,504 for the security equipment upgrade for the public safety building as presented last week by the town manager.
81,054.
54, right? You said
$54. I said 504. Sorry, $54.
You're so busy wasting me. you
I know.
Yeah, see, we got it.
Well,
It was-
you know.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. That amount was $81,054. Okay, any additional discussion? All right, as many as are in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion passes. Okay.
This one.
So also, as we discussed previously, the board has committed funding from ARPA to support the investigation and to support the Board of Assessors in being able to conduct multiple property inspections related to abatement applications that have been received by the Board of Assessors. So previously, the board has committed $150,000 for this. We've expended of that $10,000, and we received the additional work from the vendor who's performing the inspections for $69,600. That would bring that total contract value to $79,600. So again, this is utilizing funds that have already been committed. We're seeking authorization from the board to expend. Do you have any questions on this before we get into a motion? And this would be utilizing the company that has started the work, continuing it. And to the town manager, did we receive any additional proposals during the time?
No,
No.
we only received that one proposal.
Okay.
And just to be clear, Mr. Chair, we have committed these from ARPA at a previous vote.
Correct. So we're not, correct. So we are just authorizing to expend. So that's
This is
it.
the entire contract? They're
This-
not going to ask for any more funds after
This would be
that?
the
Okay.
full contract. Yeah, based on the procurement process, we can only, because the proposal came in after the RFP deadline, we can only expend $9,999.99. And so we reissue the RFP process that closed on the 23rd, and that allows us to go up to basically 250,000. So, the proposal that was received was in line with what we were expecting to get, and $69,600. So again, this is requesting I'll make the motion. I move for the board to expend $69,600 from committed ARPA funds to assist the Board of Assessors with tax assessment services.
Second.
Is there any additional discussion? As many as are in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And the motion passes. Okay. Next. In our Google Drive, I think we have it in here. So we received an open meeting law violation complaint against the Select Board related to the investigation. So I received an email from a resident. I believe it was roughly after, it was about 2 weeks ago, and I had commented that I was going to be taking some time off. And so the email came in, I believe it was that Wednesday or Thursday, and I know that I did not respond. I had town email off. I took some time off, and when I turned everything back on the following Wednesday or so, I did see that there was a follow-up. So I first want to say that I probably could have avoided us from getting this had I not have taken that time and had I have seen the response, because I had already asked town council to provide a response. Nonetheless, we did receive an open meeting law violation complaint related to the Select Board's investigation. So what we have in our Google Drive, we should have the complaint itself that came in, and then we should have the notes, that have been forwarded over to us from the Division of Open Government, and then we should also have the complaint form itself. So I'm looking for town manager's response. Not town manager, town council's response.
It says open meeting law response.
There we go, OML response.
OML response.
Yep, so what we are doing is we are going to look through the response and identify any concerns, questions that we have, so that way we can make sure that we respond to this complaint as soon as possible. Do you have any questions, comments related to the plan and response to the complaint?
None other than I concur with town council's reply.
Okay. As do I.
Might have one more minute. Yes, I do as well.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Is expectation for us to vote?
You should vote to accept town council's response to, and how you're gonna send it to the complainant, either through myself or council.
Okay.
Which probably through council, because he drafted the response.
All right. So
He's going to sign it.
I'll make the motion too.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to propose that we do is we're all in agreement that the response is appropriate. And so as a next step, I would propose for us to have town council respond to the complainant with this answer. So I will make the motion for us to accept the response to the open meeting law violation complaint, and with the instructions for town council to provide the response to the complainant as soon as possible.
Was that a motion?
It was.
Second.
Is there any additional discussion? All right, as many as are in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. All right, the motion passes. And so we will...
We can't, I mean, Mr. Chair, is it appropriate to just say what the conclusion, although the complainant will get the full report, we should probably say for people who may be wondering what their conclusion is,
Yeah.
what the conclusion is.
Sure, I can do
Okay.
that. So I'll read the end portion of this. Yeah. I'm going to make sure. So part of the complaint that was received was that the select board has been meeting improper to open meeting law violations, that we have had a subcommittee, and that we have been conducting meetings that are not public. So the response from the select board is that that is inaccurate, that we have not been conducting meetings that have not been public, that what we have been doing is having a series of conversations, and that many of us have been working independently in different areas, and there have been opportunities one-on-one to sync, but that there are no set schedules. So I'll read the end portion of this. So the end portion of our response then is that that the board did not create a subcommittee, and that that the board did not create a subcommittee to undertake the aforesaid investigation. And instead, indeed, Section 3-2E of the town charter vests the board as a whole with investigatory authority, or else allows the board to authorize the town manager to, or else allows the board to, quote, authorize the town manager to investigate. The minutes further indicate a statement following or as part of the vote above that the chair of the select board will lead the investigation, assisted by the vice chair, and in coordination and in collaboration with the town manager. In my opinion, neither acknowledging leadership by chair, nor assistance by the vice chair, nor coordination and collaboration with the town manager is the same or equivalent to an indication that the select board intended to create a multiple member body, which we did not. In addition to the above, I'm informed by the town manager that she, the chair, and the vice chair have not been meeting regularly with respect to the aforementioned investigation. In other words, consistent with the select board vote above, they have not been operating as a subcommittee. They have been performing their investigatory tasks independently and communicating from time to time as necessary. Information gathered through investigation has been discussed openly at public meetings of the select board. Also, all information related to the investigation has been shared with the full board. So all things are known by all equally. So thank you for your consideration for the above explanation, which I hope will be satisfactory to you, and then be advised that the select board reviewed and approved the foregoing response. So that is the position that we are taking, is that we are operating as a board, that we're not operating as a subcommittee, and that we have individuals who are certainly taking on certain levels and different responsibilities and duties, but that we're not having subcommittee meetings for which there could be open meeting law violations. So that's the position that we have been having and holding, and it's not, so we don't perceive, our strong belief is that we are compliant with open meeting law as previously stated. That's our position. All right. Next, we will have a discussion on the fiscal 23 tax bill date of mailing. So I will turn this to Mr. Alonso, as he requested this to be on the agenda. If you'd like to introduce this, or I can also introduce.
Sure, I can introduce it. So, as I said last week at last week's meeting, and actually probably a couple of weeks before that prior, that I had been investigating the actual tax bill mailing date, the official date. So I don't believe that anybody on this board didn't know that I was investigating that, right? Everybody knew that I was looking into this, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay. So first, let's start with what's the importance of the tax bill date. By state law, that all tax bills for the third and fourth quarter have to be mailed by December 31st at the end of the year. If they are mailed on January 1st or after, then the first due date for any tax bill, which would be the combined Q3 and Q4 tax bill, would be due on May 1st, not February 1st. That's an important fact, and that's why this becomes an important issue. So this was raised when the whole tax situation we found ourselves in came up in the middle of January. This was raised pretty immediately, and we were provided with affidavits from, an affidavit, I should say, from our tax bill bulk mailing company, Kirkwood Direct, that indicated that they mailed to them, they mailed the tax bills on December 30th at some time at 4:30 in the afternoon. Later on, in the beginning of the investigation, there was a call with the chair, myself, and Kirkwood. I cannot recall if town manager was on that call or not.
I don't think she was.
I don't believe she was. Where I had not physically seen the affidavit yet, but Mr. Jeffries had, the chair had, and there was a discussion to be had. The chair raised valid concerns about the manner in which the affidavit was notarized, that it did not have a physical signature, that it actually had a pre-scanned signature, and that the notary was not a raised seal, like it wasn't an original that had a notarized date on it. I don't know that there was any other things that you were objecting to, but those were serious things because it didn't necessarily show that it was notarized. And the notary affidavit, if I recall correctly, actually had...
She didn't attest to anything.
Yeah, there's no statement.
There's no statement.
There's no statement. Well, they did. No, they did at the top.
On the
They
top?
did have a statement. I
Okay.
hereby certify in a certificate of
okay.
mailing, but it was dated December 29th, 2002, although the mailing date was December 30th. So it was actually
2022.
What?
22,
2022.
yeah.
So it was predated the actual mailing itself from their own affidavit. I don't know that we ever received, to your satisfaction, an affidavit that had the proper seal and proper notarization, because I have not seen it.
No. Can I stop just for a second there, just to add additional information? So prior, you and I had, when you joined the conversation, it was the third call that had happened with Kirkwood. And so when I looked at the affidavit, several things stood out to me, as you just referenced, the dates, the fact that there's no statement that says this person personally appeared before me or otherwise known by me. That there was no statement there, and so you have a notary, you have what looked to be a scanned signature as you identified.
No seal.
I wasn't looking for the raised seal, but I could tell that clearly there wasn't one there, which you can color in and copy. So those were kind of the initial things. It prompted me to then reach out to Kirkwood and say, hey, I got this affidavit. It seems problematic to me. Can you explain to me how you signed something on the 29th that you mailed on the 30th? And so what they explained was that there was a series of mailings that occurred. He acknowledged off the cuff that he did a form on a whole bunch of mailings, and that the notary was there just notarizing everything. That everything was packaged, put together on the 29th. That's what he had indicated, that they were waiting for the town to pay for the actual mailing, and that way they can mail it out. So I asked at that time for him to confirm if he had any verifiable proof that that mailing actually occurred on the 30th. He then called back another time earlier in that day to state that he checked in with his personnel, And he, similar to what he said to us later in the evening, but he had checked in with his personnel. He confirmed that everything left that day, that they had several items that were, that they had done multiple mailings at the same time, then multiple trips. It was people going back and forth. And then later that evening, I still had other questions for him about, well, I want to talk to the person that dropped it off. Can you get me any kind of additional statement from that person? And there was also reach out on my part to the post office. And in that second conversation, when I indicated to him that the post office indicated to me that I got two conflicting bits of information. That when I called the North Reading post office, I spoke with the Postmaster General, who then advised me that the mailing did not occur out of their post office, that it occurred out of the distribution center. And so he transferred me then over to the distribution center. Once I got to the distribution center, I got to their loading dock area. And whoever answered that phone was clearly kind of rushed. It rang several times. And that gentleman had, I'm actually glad I got him, but I'd asked him a couple of just clear pointed questions, which was, can you verify that, basically I said, look, calling from the town of Lunenburg, we're conducting an investigation into what transpired. I'm calling to confirm that mailings occurred. And can you verify on the 30th that you received, packages from Kirkwood for the town of Lunenburg? What he indicated to me at that time was that he didn't remember specifically the town of Lunenburg, but that what he did recall was that they got a ton of mailings that day. I asked if they were open on the 30th at 4:35 p.m. At the time that was noted on the form we received. He said yes. I asked if they were open the following day, that Sunday and Monday. He indicated no, that they were not, and that a lot of mail sat there. And that and he gave me this story about they had lost a processing machine over the summer, that their whole processes had changed, and that mail sat there, that they didn't have the people and the ability to do it all, and that they processed everything on the 6th. So in that second conversation with Kirkwood, my question then was, what proof do they have? Again, I got an indication that the post office said that they didn't process the mail till the 6th. We also got an indication that it didn't arrive in Shrewsbury until the 11th. And so I said, I find it improbable or difficult to understand how mail can be in the same state and take almost 3 weeks to get to people's house. And that was when we then had the third conversation that you were part of. So I'll stop there.
So in that conversation, not knowing the other conversations, I knew that the chair had prior conversations, although I didn't know in full what the content of those were. And at that point, I had no knowledge of any conversations that the chair had with the post office. I just knew that he had spoken with Kirkwood, and this was not the first call, but it was the first call that I was on. At that call, I asked directly, while the chair asked about the notarization process and everything, again, not knowing if he had asked or not prior to that, not knowing that, I asked, what is the proof that you actually mailed them? Now, I asked specifically that there must be a check-in procedure if you're going to just, you don't just drive by and then dump the mail and then just leave. They have to be able to check it in somehow. And they said, they assured us that the documentation that they gave us was confirmation of the mail, again. So that was sometime, I don't have the exact date of our call, but it was sometime in February, early February. Not being settled with that, I continued my investigation to this until the fact that I got to the top U.S. post office for this region for what's called Business Mail Entry Unit. It's called BMEU, is the U.S. Postal Service term for what the unit in North Reading does, and many other in the region. So I got the Massachusetts and, actually I first spoke to, that was the first person I could get, was from New Hampshire, and I talked about process. I said, is there a check-in process? To which she said, yes, there is, but I can't tell you about your particular item, your particular order that you're asking about, because I'm not from Massachusetts. So she put me in touch a few days later with the supervisor for Massachusetts and Rhode Island, And we had a conversation where we talked about these particular orders, and the mailings were done in two separate mailings. One had 4,246 pieces, one had 162 pieces. And they were mailed, the forms that we were gotten in the affidavits, so they were mailed basically the same day. And I asked about if there was any receipt or check-in for that. So this woman was kind enough to help me, and she said, yes, she looked on her system, because the way it works is that the bulk mailer, when they are in preparation of bringing bulk mail to the BMEU, what they do, they have an account. They have a permit to do bulk mailing. That's why they don't get any first-class postmarking at the post office itself. So they have an account, and they deposit money, and they deposit the whole parameters of the order, about how many pieces it is, how much they weigh, where they're going to, and all the statistics about what their order is going to be, and the calculation of the cost of that. That gets entered as an order into the post office system for bulk mailers, okay? That form is what Kirkwood sent to us as proof. I was later to learn that that form that they sent us was basically, and it even says at the top of the printout of their own affidavit, that it came from the postal statement wizard. So they were in a web application filling out a form interactively, and they had to fill in when were they going to bring the mail. Not when they actually brought the mail, but when they were going to bring the mail. That creates the order and deposits money into their account. So at such time that they bring the actual physical mail, it gets checked in against that order, and then their account would be deducted for the actual cost of the mailing. In the system that the BMU supervisor looked at, it clearly shows that their check-in date is January 6th. So I probed more deeply. I'm like, is that the actual day that somebody, in the end of this form, by the way, or the screenshot, it says postal statement arrival information. So it clearly is the way to check it in. Now, I also, prior to this, had looked up how these how the bulk mailers work, and how the post office, what their procedure is for accepting such mail. And the check-in is the very first thing you do. If you go to an agent and you bring it to them, the first thing you do is ask you what account it is and what order number it is that you filled out, and they check it against that, and that's what this screenshot was showing us. And both of the mailings that went out, that they say were on December 30th, according to the post office, was received on January 6th. Now,
can I ask, so now that was kind of, I think, where we got a little confused. I wouldn't say we, I'd say where I got a little confused in terms of proof. That, so the question to the post office, because I did, after speaking with the person on the floor, spoke with the manager at the building, and the manager explained to me what the process should have been. Mm-hmm. And so, and it's similar to what you've just said. So my question then was, is there any proof that the process was followed? Because what we have is we have a vendor who says that I came and I dropped all this stuff off, and that it's at the post office, and they're not going to throw anything away, and so, are there cameras in the building? And the answer to that was no. Is there any kind of identification of a person who checked this in that we can then confirm with as having actually received it on the 6th? The answer there was no. Did you get any different kind of response to those?
Okay. The answer was not no. And I am pulling that up. So, according to both the supervisor of Massachusetts and Rhode Island and the actual supervisor at North Reading, the only way that check-in date can be different than their date is if it was actually checked in. There is no other way. No, they are the only ones who would have access to this. Once it goes to the distribution center, which for Lunenburg is in Shrewsbury, once it goes there, no one has access to this because it's now part of the mail, and only the BMEU takes care of that entry and has access to those forms. So to them, they were both the Massachusetts and Rhode Island supervisor of the district and the supervisor at North Reading were clear that they don't believe there's any way that that date could be wrong, otherwise it would be blank. So if it's changed, then it was changed because somebody accepted the mail.
Explain to me that last portion one more time.
So
How it could be blank?
well, that means you're saying, is there any proof that somebody checked it in? It gets checked in when you bring it there. So when you bring it there, that's when it would get scanned immediately.
I guess what I'm a little confused, or not confused on, but not as clear on, is there any, in other words, you know, when I had this conversation with this gentleman, and I made it pretty clear to Kirkwood when I spoke with him the first few times that, look, it works to our residents' advantage for you to tell me that you did not mail this on the 30th. For you to, if you did not mail this on the 30th, that helps our people, it doesn't hurt them. And understanding that, they were insistent that they wish they could help me, but that the mail was mailed on the 30th. And so on the post office side, like I said, the story that they gave was that the mail sat there, and that they came, they dropped off a whole bunch of mail, 47 different things, I think is what they said. So is there any kind of proof from the post office that I know what their process is, but is there any proof that that actually occurred?
So,
Meaning, in other words, the post office isn't going to throw away a pallet of mail, but is there any way they can prove that someone came in, delivered a pallet of mail to them on the 3rd or on the 6th, either way?
I don't, well, first of all, I would ask you, what would constitute proof to you?
Well, what would constitute proof would be identifying a person.
Nobody's going to remember back.
No, but
4
I guess,
months.
does their system log, like, you know, when you work for a company and you scan something, a lot of systems log who that person is who's doing the scanning.
I didn't ask that question. Obviously, it's on the form that I sent to you, both you and the town manager, that it was filled in. I don't know how internally, I'm assuming since it's a database, somebody probably has access to somebody, just like anybody who has a cashier, or, you know, is a cashier, they know who logged in to check this person out. I didn't ask that question, but clearly it didn't originate there.
Yeah, no. And I think that was where I think I was looking for something in the form of who scanned it in, can we check with them? Because again, we're having this conversation at this point, you know.
Well, maybe
within
some
30
of this else would help you, okay?
All right.
So, after I got this information, I asked the questions, what was on this form that they sent, and they saw the form that Kirkwood had sent us, their postal imprint, and I said, this one has a mailing date. And it was clearly explained to me that mailing date is, as I explained already, was what the anticipated mail date was, but that the system check-in arrival date is the actual date it was mailed. And that was the date it was physically presented. I have both supervisors saying clearly, and that's also what the protocol is. So, to answer your question, Mr. Chair, after that, I said, I thanked the gentleman for his assistance, and I said, I have a couple of questions about the whole BMEU process that he could hopefully help out with. So I said, number one, when bulk mail is physically delivered to the BME, does a U.S. postal employee have to officially receive that email from the deliverer and note its receipt, or can it just be dropped off without any postal service interaction? Then I'll ask my questions, and then I'll go back to his answer instead of going back and forth.
Okay.
Then, is the system check-in time noted on the postal statement arrival information section on the same mail? Is that the same mail arrival date shown on the mail transaction receipt form? So we got two forms. We got a mail receipt form that showed the date of the receipt, right here, these two. That was the form that they fill out. There's a mail transaction receipt form that at the bottom says the mail arrival date and time. Okay? I sent that to you as well.
Yep.
And then I said on the screenshots that the supervisor sent to me, it had the same thing. I wanted to know that they were the same, one and the same date, pulling from the same data field. Then I said, number 3, and this is to your point, is it feasible that bulk mail could be delivered to a BMEU, such as North Reading, and be left unaddressed for 7 days and then, quote, checked in the system at that later date of January 6th? And I said, lastly, was your facility open and operating Saturday through Monday, December 30th, 2022 to January 2nd, 2023? And his response was as follows. He says, yes, when bulk mail is presented into the BMU, a bulk mail clerk checks it in through our Postal One system, which gives it the mail arrival date as shown on the receipt, as I've just indicated, which should also be the same as the system check-in date in Postal One, which is the screenshot. This is different, however, to the mailer's mail date that you may see, which is only the planned mailing date as entered in the Postal One from the mailer's end. On a side note, there are times when a mailing can be dropped off outside of a BMU without the interaction of a mail clerk. And for example, after hours, it's called seamless mailing, have the ability to do that. And they can drop ship 7 days a week. These mailings can be brought into the drop ship area of our North Reading facility, would be verified through other scans. From what I can see, though, the 2 mailings listed that were inquired about for the town of Lunenburg were brought into the BMEU and checked in by a clerk just because the check-in date is different than the mailing date. If it was a dropped shipment, then it would not have been changed. There would be no one who would change the shipping date. A drop shipment would get scanned in by the expediters at their building, and it would just be verified and scanned in for payment. So there is a chance that we could look at when the payment was actually made. But from his knowledge of the system, the scan would not be the check-in date, though. So the only way you get the check-in date is if somebody physically scans it in. I'll add to that another piece of information from yesterday that I found out. He said, lastly, any mail that is brought into a BMU must be checked in by the clerk as soon as it arrives, and we must walk our docks every evening to make sure all mailings have been cleared and attended to. So no, it's not possible that a mailing brought into a BMU would sit there for 7 days. So that was directly from the supervisor. I also have somebody who works in the Postal Service for 35 years who said the same thing. He says there are 3 trucks that go from North Reading to Shrewsbury every day they're open, and even if it was sat, which is, he's saying clearly did not happen, but even if it sat, it would not wait until the 6th. The worst case, it would be the 3rd, but even that didn't happen because they were checked in. Now, yesterday, I called somebody at Kirkwood Direct, their name right on the form that they sent us, not the person that the chair and I spoke with, who was the president who was handling this at the highest level. Just remember that the president of the company is handling our call about an affidavit about stuff they do thousands of for thousands of pieces of mail. But I talked to somebody whose name was on the imprint, and he says, I don't handle that. And I said, I just want to ask you a question about your mailings. I said, if something of this size, would this have been brought into a clerk, or would this have been dropped off as a seamless mailing? He says, no, it's something 4,200 things, that would be like 3 trays. Of course they wouldn't drop that out. Things that dropped off at the drop shipment are like pallets, when you sell pallets of stuff. So he was very clear that, yeah, these would have been brought into a clerk. So the point of all this is, I think, to my estimation, other people can certainly think differently, I think that this is proof that it was mailed later, that the real mailing date is January 6th. However, I would be willing to concede that at least there is a discrepancy. Now, I'm being pretty liberal in thinking there's a discrepancy, but I'm willing to at least entertain that. And in the notion or in the possibility that it's a discrepancy, with the amount of impact that this has had on many residents, I think it would behoove the board to accept the January 6th date and therefore make the first mailing date from the statutory perspective, May 1st, and not February 1st. Now, what would that mean now that we're sitting on March 28th? What it would mean is that anybody who filed a partial bill and an abatement, if they were not abated their whole amount, they would be paying penalties from February 1st. That would abate that penalty and make it not till May 1st. For people who couldn't come up with the money for some reason, because there are some people who have really been drastically hit, it would give them till May 1st to come up with the money. And anybody who didn't file an abatement because maybe they didn't know the process or didn't pay the payment, therefore felt they couldn't file an abatement, would be able to file an abatement. For the vast majority of people who have already paid the taxes, it wouldn't have any impact on it, because they would have paid it and we're not going to return it because the next thing would be due in a month anyway. So I think with this kind of cloud over this, I would urge the board, hopefully, that you could provide some relief and say that we accept that that the mail was mailed after December 31st, 2022, or it's reasonable to believe. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying that this affidavit was falsified or anything. I think there's a misunderstanding about what is meant by when it was mailed. Okay, so I'm not looking for anything from that side. I'm just looking for the fact that given the discrepancy and given the cloudy nature of it, I think the board should accept the later date and provide that modicum of relief to the board, to the residents as I've stated. So that is.
Tom, I want to first thank you for the level of detail that you went into in reaching out to the post office. I think that clearly this affidavit stood out pretty quickly as problematic. And I think, we landed in different areas, but I think we both landed with there's a discrepancy here that we don't have a clear enough answer to. One of the things that you had said, I think it was at last week's meeting, you mentioned it again tonight, was that there's multiple trucks that go out. I was contacted by a resident who said, look, my mail didn't hit Shrewsbury until January the 11th. And so they're like, I highly doubt it was mailed in December if it didn't hit Shrewsbury until January the 11th. Mm-hmm. So my question to you is, in this process, if they have these 3 trucks leaving every single day from North Reading to Shrewsbury, why did they give an explanation for why it took from the 6th to the 11th for the mail to get there?
I didn't ask anything beyond the check-in at the BMEU because that's the only mailing date. This is not a test of the mailing, the mail efficiency or the mail delivery assist. I'm just looking at their process, which when it was checked in is what's important, not when it got to people's mailboxes. If it had gotten to the if that check-in date said December 30th and people didn't get it to the 15th, I'd be like, well, the post office is saying they received it, and that would be a different story. But, so I can't explain why some people got them later than others or what was going on.
Did the post office, did they offer any additional information about staffing? I mean, were they fully staffed? And what I'm getting at is, I understand. I want to believe that if we can just, I want to believe, excuse me, that that we should be able to very clearly identify a date, excuse me for a second. And if we have the opportunity to pick, we should be picking what's in the best interest of our residents, which is the later date.
I would hope so, yes.
Do we have, I guess where I'm struggling a little bit is on understanding we have a process and it seems as if what's being really clear is what the process is. It seems really clear to me from what you've said to me that there should be no possible way that you could ever drop off this kind of packages and it not be scanned in immediately. That there should be. If you
bring it to a clerk.
If you bring it, that there should be no way that this happens. And I can accept that. I've gone to the post office many times in my life. I've mailed many things. I'm used to my experience of mailing, probably not used to the bulk experience of mailing. Is there anything that they can give us besides their process that says that their process was 100% followed? In other words, are they telling us that they had the right staffing, that they weren't shorthanded 2 days before, New Year's Eve, that they were definitively open or not open at that time? Like something that would say, no, we were closed at 4 p.m. on Saturday. There's no way that they came in here at 4:35 and dropped off this mail. Is there anything that kind of can give me that? I guess what I'm getting at is there's different burdens of proof, and I want to get to beyond a reasonable doubt, but I'm at like 95%. So what's the burden here that we should be trying to get to?
Well, let me
Is it
just add
preponderance
one
of
thing.
the evidence, which is a much lower threshold?
Yeah, well, that's what I would say. I mean, unless you have a videotape with a timestamp, and then you'd say, well, how do I know the timestamp is correct? And then how do I know this is not a chat GPT video? Or, I mean, so I could go on ad nauseum about all of this, but it has to do with, processes, according to the Business Mail Acceptance Manual for how to take in the mail, which I downloaded,
Yep.
because that's fun reading. It says on mail, acceptance employees must check in all mailings submitted for verification and acceptance upon arrival.
Yep.
So the fact that it has a check-in date means that if I bring it to there, that's the first thing they're supposed to do. Now, do I know without any doubt? No, I mean, there's doubt in everything. So I think we should look at what is more reasonable to believe. The affidavit that they gave us, it came with no evidence that it was mailed except their own form opening up the order. And yet we have a system that supervisors at the U.S. Post Office, who, by the way, have absolutely no stake in this.
Yeah.
Right? If it was mail late, say, yeah, I might have stayed there, there's no recourse against them. They would say, if you want your mail on time, then mail it earlier. What do you want me to tell you? There's no reason for them not to have the right, accurate information. So the answer to your question is, can I prove beyond a reasonable doubt? To my mind, I got proved to me beyond my reasonable doubt. Everybody's reasonable doubt is certainly different, but if I had to compare the evidence I got from the post office compared to what I got from Kirkwood, I'm going to go with the post office.
Yeah, I think where I'm probably having the most challenges is in our conversation with Kirkwood, I made it explicitly clear that it works to our advantage for him to tell me we messed up.
But it doesn't work to his advantage.
Well,
because if he would admit that first of all, once they gave us the affidavit, he certainly wasn't going to admit that he didn't do it. Okay? And number two, if they said it at the beginning, two things would have been true. First of all, it would have been hurtful to the town if we had known and he had admitted, because then everybody's tax bill would have been due May 1st, and that's problematic. And also, because of that was problematic to the town, one would guess, if I was the owner of said company, that I think it would be problematic to me because probably my business ain't coming back from the town. So, I mean, I don't want to project intentions or, motives to people, but there's a lot more at stake for Kirkwood than there is for the post office.
Lou.
Okay, yes, very interesting both, thank you. There are three evidentiary standards that could be applied. Beyond a reasonable doubt, clear and convincing evidence, and preponderance of the evidence. Preponderance of the evidence simply means that one side produced just over 50% of the evidence. I think that the very strictest standard that should be applied here is a preponderance of the evidence. I don't think we need beyond a reasonable doubt. Beyond a reasonable doubt is if we wanted to, if we wanted to, which we wouldn't, but we wouldn't be in that position. But if you wanted to criminally prosecute somebody for falsifying the affidavit, you would need to do that beyond a reasonable doubt. We don't need to do that. We only need to look at the evidence before us. At the very worst, from a resident's perspective, I would say preponderance of the evidence is the standard that ought to be applied. I think that standard is more than met, that the date was beyond the 30th. But I would also say that even if it's 50-50, that the doubt ought to be resolved in favor of the residents. So that's where I stand on it.
I agree. Heather?
I agree. I brought this up in January. I sent you an email, and I thought we should extend it back then. But then you came forward with the affidavit, so,
Yep.
yeah.
So-
I think, though, I also think I can see it in this way. I think they may have scanned it in and said they were going to mail it, like FedEx does all the time, and then you go to check on your FedEx package, and it hasn't even been picked up by FedEx. Okay, so they might have scanned it in, and yet it sat in their office for 6
Okay,
days.
so that, the example you used, except there was one detail I would change. The example you used is exactly the example I use. If you order something from Amazon or somebody who ships online, many times you get the tracking number
Yep.
for FedEx or UPS or UPS, USPS. You get it in advance, and I'm always the one who like clicks it. I want to see where it is.
That's me.
And it's like they haven't even checked it in yet. So the company that you bought it from opened the order.
Correct.
But the company you're shipping it with hasn't received it, and that's what that check-in date is.
That's
Right.
exactly.
And that's why I believe it was mailed, actually physically mailed on January 6th.
All right, so.
And I think everyone can get that, because everyone ships things.
Yeah, okay. I could have been half an hour shorter.
Yes. I jumped in earlier, but you did all that work, Tom.
No, and I also think, Tom, that in just being real, that part of our role is to look at things critically. And I know that, people watching us, I look at select board meetings as meetings that happen to be televised, not necessarily, that they happen to be televised, but really that we need to be able to have these in-depth discussions in which we do challenge each other to get to the truth. I don't know what happened, but on any day, if we have a choice of picking, there's no question of what we're all going to pick in terms of I'm picking the 6th. But do I know that the mailed on the 6th? No, I don't. But I'm about 95% sure that it did not happen on the 30th. So.
That's pretty close to beyond a reasonable doubt.
Well, I would then, Mr. Chair, because we've had this discussion, I would move that this board accept the fact that they were, to the best of our knowledge, and that we're going to accept the fact that they were mailed after the last day of the year, and they were mailed in 2023. The actual date is not relevant, but it was mailed in 2023 physically, and therefore the due date should be, for all calculated purposes of penalties and interest and filing of abatements, should be May 1st of 2023.
I will second that motion. Thank you, Tom. Is there any additional discussion on this?
I agree with the conclusion. That's where I land too. I just say that, even if it's equally probable, I mean, I suppose I can go that, yeah, it's slightly greater than, at least slightly greater than 50%. The probability is slightly greater than 50% at the very least that it was after the 1st. So I guess I'm there with the same rationale. So I don't have the same high degree of confidence you do, but I don't think that I need that. Even if it were equally probable, I'd still be landing in the same place, resolving the doubt in favor of the residents.
Okay, before we vote on this, I want to come to the town manager.
Thank you, because I was going to ask to speak. So, as you're aware, we had asked town council to check with DOR if the select board has that authority to designate which is the actual mailing date, whether to abide by the affidavit or the post office records. And we have yet to hear back from town council. He has not been in touch with DOR's legal counsel on that question.
So I know this question has gone to Adam. We sent it to him last week, and then the correspondence from Adam, town council has indicated that he's made several phone calls, email communications, and has not received a response from them. And then also did another follow-up as well today. So I think there's been at least 3 or 4 contacts over the last week to get clarity on if this board decides that the mailing didn't occur until the 6th, what that actually means for the taxpayers, as Mr. Alonso is stating, and can we, because, we're basically saying, looking at the law and saying it wasn't followed, and so therefore we have to go by the statutory deadlines that are there resulting in that. So the question is, can we make that determination? Who makes that determination, finalizing it? I'm prepared nonetheless for the select board to move tonight to vote that the mailing occurred on the 6th, and I think that the majority of the board will agree with that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
First of all, I would agree with that, because if DOR comes back and say, you don't have the statutory authority to do that, then all this does become a moot vote, and that's fine, we haven't done anything. And if they do say you have the authority to select which date, if there's a discrepancy or there's not clear evidence, then we've already done it. So I don't think we run the risk of going afoul of anything and setting anything in motion that has any other any other negative outcome. Either it'll be accepted or it won't be accepted.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear, because this vote indicates an action on my part and my staff's part as well. So and just be clear, you're waiting, even though you're taking this vote, waiting for DOR's response.
Well, then I will add that we will wait for town council's reply from DOR to enact this. But we'll take the vote that we're doing it, and it's upon hearing from, it'll be actionable upon hearing from town council after conversations with DOR's council.
Okay.
And I will amend my second to support that.
Is that okay?
Yep, that's clear.
Okay. All right. Any additional discussion on this? We have a motion and a second, and we have an amended motion and an amended second. All in favor, say aye.
Of the amended?
Of the amended motion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimous. So we will follow up once we hear back from town council on the effect and go from there. All right. So next on our agenda, let's just give it a minute here to allow people to leave. All right. Next on our agenda tonight, we have review town manager evaluation process and timeline. So, I'm just getting to it. Why am I not saying this? There we go. This is one of those nights. It really is. You are like on A+ tonight, and I am on B-. So, I think you've had to correct me like 3 times so far. All right. All right, so what we have in our Google Drive is every year, I'm just going to give you kind of the generalized overview. Every year we have the town manager completes her self-evaluation, and then following that, what happens is, and we try to get everything done before the election. So what happens after the town manager completes her self-evaluation is that individual members also do their draft evaluations to the town manager, and then we schedule those meetings with the town manager. So basically, I know in the timeline, the town manager has noted April 22nd, but realistically, we should get those before then. And what happens in the normal process is town manager is going to provide to us her draft, her self-evaluation on or about, we'll say, the 15th. Definitely before the 22nd, but on or about the 15th. And no later than the 22nd. We then take that self-evaluation, we look at it, we consider it, but we also do our own. And we write our own evaluations, and then we go and we meet with the town manager and discuss them.
Individually?
Individually.
Okay.
Now, what I've done in the past is I have not finalized the evaluation until after the meeting, and I've also written it so that way I finalized it before and only wanted to talk about like one area in the evaluation. So you really can do this however you want to in your own kind of way, but the gist is that once you look at the town manager, you have to meet with her that last week of April, which would be coming off of school vacation week this year, and then everyone would need to send me, as the chair, your evaluation of the town manager, really no later than April the 29th, and that's basically the end of April. That then gives me a week to do a compilation, in which I'm looking at what everyone individually prepared, and I'm doing one composite evaluation for the town manager for us to then discuss at the TIF. Now, a couple of critical things. We do not make our individual assessments of the town manager a public document, and therefore we cannot ever discuss what we specifically wrote in the town manager's evaluation during the meetings. We also cannot share those evaluations during the process. Now, once we get into the composite phase, all of our individual evaluations are available. If anyone wants to come in to verify that the composite is aligned with what everyone individually wrote, we have the ability to do that. But we never say, well, I said in my evaluation this, and I wanted this in there. We make sure that in the public meeting that we never, ever have that conversation. So we do not want the individual evals to come into the record. So that's how we do this. And then at the 10th, if we have any issues, we usually should know by then, and then the 17th is when we give them. Now, most years, members never give all of their composites on time. That has never happened, and I'm usually been the guilty party, so this year...
Now it's your problem.
I was gonna, when I had the opportunity, I was gonna say, this is one aspect I don't miss at all.
So I was usually the problem child with this. So this year, you know, I'll take it on the chin if people are late, because I know I was late to Tom in the past 3 or 4 years. So the idea, though, is what's really critical in this process is that we meet with the town manager that last week of April. And that way you have the opportunity to give that kind of feedback. What I have found is that Heather takes these evaluations quite seriously, that she takes the feedback we give quite seriously. I think Heather's typically very modest in her own self-evaluations. As a pattern, I've noticed that. And then for ourselves, any areas of deficiency or that needs improvement, I've noticed that Heather tends to really focus on those areas that we identify. So this is a real serious process. The town manager definitely takes this serious. She doesn't blow it off and say, hey, it is what it is. So any questions at all about the process? I know Tom knows this. How'd I do explaining that, Tom?
Very good.
All right.
Very good. I would reinforce the fact that when you have, and I'm sure the chair will reiterate it, no member's individual evaluation is public record, and you cannot reference it in a public meeting, because otherwise, by reference, it becomes public record. So you can only reference things in the composite form in general terms.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
I've found that Tom has done a great job in the past with composite evals.
Is that why you're going to give it to him?
I'm sure you, yeah. I accepted that. I'm sure you will do a good job too, Michael.
And I would like to delegate that.
No way.
It's like, I know it's like herding cats. So I know it's like herding cats. And then you have a lot of, you know, sometimes you have a range of views. The other thing is that we, in the evaluation process, I've been guilty of doing the points, and I think we have whole numbers. So that's just something to keep in mind, that we do have whole numbers for each section. And you know, if you can,
like not 0.5 or anything.
yeah, if you can avoid the points, avoid them. If you can't, don't worry about it, but try to avoid them.
I can't do that. No, it's fractional for me.
He goes to, he's a patent attorney. He goes to like three decimal points of accuracy.
All right. Are there any questions about that?
This is Mr. Dot 99 cents.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I know.
But that was a good rationale.
That was good. Any questions at all? All right. Straightforward. So I know from you, Heather, you've noted in here the 22nd. I would encourage if you can try to target the 15th. I know you're going to be away for a week. I know you're going to be away, so.
Right, but I have
her vacation.
No, she is. No, she hasn't. Oh yeah, that's right. The 15th would be right before the vacation, wouldn't it?
right. I'll try to get it by the 15th, but I have a lot to do between now and then.
Yeah.
If it's the 22nd, Heather, we get it. So this is your last full family. I just want to say it's your last full family vacation.
Don't say that to her.
What?
Why? That's
No, not like full, but
vacation,
you know,
though, because,
with all the kids
like,
in the house.
When
Why is the last one? Because
Yeah,
well, because all the timing will change when they go to college. They never have the same spring break.
way to cheer up the mood.
Yeah.
No, it's exciting. I think it's
exciting.
I loved my
Sad.
last big family vacation. Yeah, before I became an adult, and I was the youngest, so we had a really big one.
Well, that's a different vantage point. Yeah. One my son probably has, but
Right.
yeah.
Different feeling.
Yeah. So, all right. So that's kind of where we're at. I think we should have plenty of time. If if Heather, is not able to, I'm not asking us to change this to the 15th. It's just a goal. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. If Heather hits the 22nd, that gives us really, only a handful of days on our side to get our own evaluations written, which would be the weekend coming off of school vacation that weekend. Also, on April the 25th, we do have a select board meeting. I do plan on taking that day off, just as a note.
Thanks for bringing that up. That date that's to discuss the Flat Hill culvert drainage problem.
Yeah.
And that date couldn't be changed because that's when everyone
Right.
could attend. They couldn't make it on the 18th.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so thank you for that, Heather. I appreciate it. Okay, any questions on that process? No. So when the town manager sends out her self-eval, would you mind just sending us, I didn't look to see if it was already in here, just the draft procedure. Is it in here?
It
Yep,
is in
it
there.
is. Perfect. So we all have it in here, so if you want to get a head start on this, you certainly can. You don't have to wait for the town manager's evaluation, but it is often helpful if you have her self-eval first. All right, approval of minutes for February the 7th. Do we have a motion?
I was not there at the meeting, so I will.
That was the Zoom meeting.
Was it? Yes, it was.
I move to approve the minutes of February, relative to the Select Board meeting of February 7th, 2023, as presented.
I second that.
Any additional discussion? As many as are in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion. One abstention. Motion passes. All right, let's go through some warrants. We have an accounts payable warrant in the amount of $822,874.13. We have a payroll deduction warrant in the amount of $300,773.49. We have a payroll warrant in the amount of $954,515.39. We're going to pass down the poll petition. Although I did not vote for it, the board did, and so I will sign. So Lou, you have yourself a separate set of signatures. As the clerk, it says Lou, sign here.
Yeah, the clerk's work is never done.
It isn't.
Do we have any action items this evening? Any committee reports?
Heather, did you, there was supposed to be a Economic Development Committee meeting last Thursday, but there was no quorum, so that didn't happen.
Finance Committee on Thursday will have their public hearing of the warrant. Both Mr. Franco and I will be there to present I'll be there, we'll probably be there for the whole meeting, but we'll be there specifically to present the senior tax relief article.
You're going to be there for the whole meeting. No, I'm kidding.
I will be there for the whole meeting, so.
I'm kidding. Did you want me to fill in the date on the front, too, that we executed this? Okay. Sure. It's the 28th.
Yep.
Okay. Any other committee reports? No? All right. Our upcoming meeting schedule, we have a meeting on April the 4th, that's next week, that's an investigative workshop. We have a couple of appointments, but the intent of that meeting is to go through what we know with regards to the investigation publicly. And then we are also meeting on the 11th, and we are not meeting on the 18th, and we are meeting again on the 25th.
And I will not be at the 11th.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
right.
And then after the 25th, that's town meeting the next.
I think
that
I got
week,
it all.
right?
Yes. Yep. Then the next one is town meeting, so we're in our last This is our last kind of three stretch before we get into town meeting.
We have one meeting after April 25th.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, but it's a town meeting. Like, it's right before town meeting. We usually talk about town meeting.
Right? Is it, I mean,
It's it's that Tuesday.
the 32nd,
It's the
town meeting
second.
is, town meeting is what? day?
6th.
Oh, so, okay, so we have another meeting.
Yeah, the first one in May.
All right.
But I know that meeting's usually prep for the town meeting. All right, any public comments this evening from the town manager?
No comments from me.
Any public comments from the public?
Two people on the phone. Oh.
There we go. Let's take the phone call. Is this Rhonda? So,
Maybe she said.
Hi, this is Rhonda with here, 181 Ransborough Road.
hey, Rhonda.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Hi. Okay, I just had a question about the vote taken earlier on the mailing date. So does this mean that anyone in the town can file an abatement later than the cutoff date?
If, may I answer?
Yeah.
So if we get word from town council that the board did have the authority to, in this discrepancy, to choose which mailing date is, if that is accepted, then what you said will be true, because the abatement date filing would be on the first due date, and because of that mailing acceptance, that would be May 1st. So the answer is yes.
I would.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that it was anyone in the town.
Rhonda, I want to just offer a caveat. We are waiting for town council's response, but I've also gotten an indication that it would be 30 days from the date of the mailing, which would be February the 6th.
Well, we had the conversation with town council where he said when he read the statute that was not true, but
Okay.
that it was from the due date of the mailing. In fact, it says on the back of our own tax bill.
That's right.
That it's from the due date of the first tax due date, which if they were mailed after the first of the year, would be May 1st. So you have till May 1st to do it.
So at this point, Rhonda,
Okay.
we will be following up next week, and as soon as we get more information with that answer.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome, Ms. Lizio. Anything else?
No, that's it, thank
All
you.
right.
Have a good day.
Same to you. Okay. Do we have any other public comments this evening from the public? All right. Any public comments from the board?
I have none.
All right. So I'm going to move to enter into an executive session and to adjourn after exiting executive session. So pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30, Section 21, Paragraph 3, it is to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the government's litigating position, and I, as chair, so declare, namely National Prescription Opiate Litigation, case number 1-:17-MD-MD-2804. Also, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30, Section 21, Paragraph 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the government's bargaining position, and I, as chair, so declare, and this is with regards to the fire union. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second?
Somebody's on there. Who is that?
It's Dave.
Mr. Rogers. it
Mr.
sounded
Rogers?
like.
Yeah,
Hello, Mr. Chairman.
I hear you, Mr. Rogers. Is there a second to the
Second.
motion? There's a second to the motion. I will pause before we vote on that. Mr. Rogers. How is he
Yes.
talking on mute?
Mr. Chairman, Dave Rogers, 82 Highland Street. I was wondering if I could get a clarification. I thought that I saw on some documents that the sewer department was looking for, in the aggregate, $500,000 of ARPA funds. Is that correct?
That is correct. I think yes, that's correct.
Yes.
Two requests, one for 300,000 and one for 200.
Right. And is it also correct that the sewer department is running an approximate $400,000 deficit from operations?
I'm not aware of a deficit in operations in the sewer department. Are you aware to the town manager?
They're utilizing about 427,000 from retained earnings as a combination towards their fiscal '24 budget. What they typically use it on for OPEB and the reserve capacity and their other stabilization account.
Okay. Is it also the fact that they have $2.2 million in retained earnings?
That sounds about right. I don't have that
Okay.
number in
I'm
front of
not
me.
going to hold you to the pennies, but roughly. So the intent is to take $400,000, which is roughly the deficit, and utilize that amount of money from the $2.2 million retained earnings.
That sounds correct.
No?
Retained earnings is
Okay.
like free cash for an enterprise.
Yeah, okay. So it is an enterprise account, so-called, and they're supposed to run it, as a break-even profit. So my question is this: why does it make sense that the entire town take care of the burden, so-called, for the deficit and for specifically the expense to repair sewer manholes and to reset the sewer cover? This is as an enterprise account, or they should be, be able to do their structure so that they at least break even. And I wonder why everybody in the town will end up, feeling the effect of this.
So, Mr. Rogers, just so I can make sure, I think your point is clear, but I want to make sure I got it right. What you're saying is that the sewer commission, the sewer commissioners have over $2 million of retained earnings, and they have a request before this board for $500,000 for funding to replace and support manhole covers, and I think what you're asking is kind of the why?
Yeah.
I don't have an answer to that. I would encourage you nonetheless to get an answer to that, to reach out to the sewer commissioners. They may be in the best position to answer that, but this board has not made any decision with regards to their funding request for ARPA. And
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a logical course of action, but I listened to their meeting and I tried to get in, and my technology just didn't work. But I can do one or two things. I can call them individually or whatever. But I just wanted to know from your perspective. The other thing is that the former chairman of the sewer commission at the last meeting I saw made reference to the fact that they should also check and see if available funds were around for 90B. That's the road funds, right?
Chapter 9.
Chapter 90.
What?
Chapter 90?
Chapter 90.
Available funds, road funds for the sewer?
Yeah, Chapter 90?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, the Chapter 90, as I understood it, and maybe I'm wrong, 90B funds were to go towards repairing roads and that sort of thing. So it was brought up in this meeting that possibly they should also go and see if there would be any way that they could take money from the 90 Chapter 90 money for the repair of the sewer manholes and to reset the sewer covers. So, obviously, in a package, they're running a deficit, and they're looking for anything they can possibly find to take care of those. And I think that it would be a big mistake if we took $500,000 from ARPA funds and applied it towards the sewer, because not everybody gets the opportunity to feel the benefit of the sewer, because not everybody's on the sewer line.
Yep. While in this instance I happen to agree with you, Mr. Rogers, I just would identify that the ARPA funding that we receive specifically has provisions for investing in sewer and water infrastructure without any limitations or restrictions on the percentage of the community that's actually served by those. So this funding is in part specifically for those reasons, though in this specific instance I would concur with your assessment.
Okay. I mean, I can pick 6 or 7 different areas that those funds could be used for, outside the sewer, and it just seems to me, I'll also tell you one other thing. There was some discussion at this meeting about being preemptive in terms of getting the wherewithal to hire another person if and when they need it. So I'm saying to myself, with a $40,000 deficit and all the things I've said, that just doesn't sound logical. I'll look forward to see how this is wrapped up. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Give my regards to Karen. Always good to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys and gals, for all that you do. And Madam Town Manager, I think you do a fantastic job, and I hope that the review that you get reflects that.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you again. Yep. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other public comments from the public?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just wanted to remind you that I think at last week's meeting, we did recommend the sewer go to the legislature for the pump. Wasn't that on our list of recommendations?
It was.
That we
It was.
sent to the legislature? I just wanted to remind you of that fact, that it wasn't
pump
ARPA funds,
stations.
but we did send it to the state to see if they would fund it.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Any other? All right. Now we have a motion that's been seconded to go into executive session. This is going to be a roll call vote. Selectwoman Sroka.
Yes, aye.
Selectman Franco.
Aye, as long as it's short.
Selectman Alonso.
Aye.
And an aye for myself. So thank you all. We will not be entering back into regular session. Thank you for joining us tonight. I think, especially this evening, I know we had a lot on the agenda to get through. We knew coming into tonight it was going to be a long meeting, so thank you for sticking it out with us, and please join us next week. Same time, same place. Have a wonderful evening.